Estongo and hello, I'm Tim Long and this is Unequal Temperament. I'm here in Rochester, New York on Seneca land thinking about being Indian. November is Native American Heritage Month and it always brings up a lot of different thoughts for me. First of all, just a few things that have happened since the last time I saw you guys. The election is over. It's over. Thank God it's over. I'm a little happy, at least hopeful, which I haven't been in a while, and hope goes a long way, especially in times like these with COVID and with rising COVID restrictions and all this stuff. It's finally gone up a little bit in Rochester, and we're hoping to get it back down. But today, the CDC came out with this recommendation that no one travels for Thanksgiving. So, we're mulling that over and seeing, we're staying put in Rochester, but just wondering how strict we need to be with this. Other things that have happened, just so you guys know what I'm dealing with. I have a very happy life. I have a very fortunate life. But we all have things. My mother is 87 and she's in advanced dementia now. So we think about her all the time. She's living with my sister who's doing a fantastic job. Her family is watching over my mother, and I just wish the best thoughts for her all the time because she's responsible for the life that I have. I've had other relatives who've passed away this year, some recently. My cousin, my brother, Bob Pine-Zattleby, Kiowa man. We love him. Bob Z is gone. My uncle, Cliff Reeder, just passed away. And in the last week, one of my favorite people, Beaver Ward. Beaver's from Jaeger. I bet you guys don't know many people named Beaver. Well, Beaver was my dad's best friend. It's completely fluent in Creek and a great guy. I was traveling around. I was with this group in Norway, Trondheim, Norway, doing things. I was in a mall. I get a call from Beaver with this thick Oklahoma Creek accent, and it was the most wonderful thing. So, I wish the best for all of them. COVID has hit my extended family in Oklahoma as well. Junior McGeely, my cousin, is in the hospital with it. A relative, Minnie Wolf, is in the hospital with it. My cousin Sonia's husband, Victor Orange, is in the hospital with it. And I asked myself, what am I supposed to do? Because we don't really have any definite recommendations. And I wonder, is it being Oklahoma? Is it being unsafe? Is it because we're native and we're more susceptible to it? I just don't know. And I spend every day asking myself, should I be stricter than everybody else? I really don't know. The good thing is I'm an introvert and a hermit anyway. I see my students at school and I love them and we're all safe. And so I'll just try to stay on that safe trajectory. Thanksgiving does bring up a lot of different thoughts for me. And, holidays evolve in meaning. People ask me if Thanksgiving is offensive to me, and I like to eat. So no. And there's Thanksgiving in many, many different countries. There are so many different opposing viewpoints about where it started. So give me a chance to eat and I'm good. The only thing I have a problem with is when people treat these holidays like this is the beginning of civilization on this continent, which is completely untrue. But I was looking up some facts on Thanksgiving, and they think that in the first Thanksgiving that there was probably not turkey, but probably lobster, seal, and swans. So I want to go back to that menu. Fried swan sounds quite good, and that will finish my day of gluttony, and I'll wash it down with some booze and Oreo cookies. But before we go on, I want to tell y'all just a couple of stories about being native in this country, because I'm very blessed. I'm around a bunch of very progressive people all the time, liberals, people who do think about race, and still I'm confronted with issues. This is getting old now, 2004, but I was conducting in Boston at the time, and this came out in the New York Times. It's called the Indian Imprisonment Act. And it was something that prohibited Native Americans from entering Boston city limits for fear that members of their barbarous crew would cause residents to be exposed to mischief. That may be true, but it's not, shouldn't be legal. You couldn't enter without the benefit of 2 musketeers to escort the Indians into the city with business. And then I realized, well, I made my conducting debut illegally in Boston. And now, in retrospect, I wish I had gone in and worn a headdress to the pit. Another thing that happened to me, when I was younger, well, even when I was not so young, but when again, I'm very fortunate, but when I have racial incidents happen, I was sort of stunned. So I talk to my students now, especially students of color, about, how do we respond to these things? Because I never knew how to respond. One thing that happened to me, and this was about 12 years ago, I was conducting in St. Louis, and I had these patrons who were very left-wing liberal, very progressive. One was a university professor, and they invited me to their weekend home on the river. And this was meant to be a really, really nice gift to me. And I thought, I had fun with them. Yeah, I'll go out with them. So we went out, and, the woman kept talking about arrowheads out there and original Indian land and all that. And then after a few hours, she approached me and she said, "Tim, I have these plastic arrowheads here. Would you come spread them around the outdoors with me so I can tell my grandson that a real Indian left these?" And I was speechless. I was shocked because I'm so rarely affronted this way, and especially from somebody who saw no issue with this, somebody who was very, very progressive. And I didn't have it in me at that time to stop and say, "Do you know what you're saying to me? Do you know what you're asking me to do?" I ended up just saying, I have to go. I can't stay here. And I never confronted the issue with them. I told a lot of people about it. I never confronted them. Had it been today, I would have stopped the whole damn thing and set her straight. But it still kind of pains me to this day because I know I'm one of the fortunate ones. And if, as one of the fortunate Indian people in this country, I'm still faced with things like this, well, what about the people who are not as fortunate as I am? What about the people who have been beaten down a lot more than I am? So that's why I do speak up about being Native, about being a minority. And I think it's very important that we're seen for that as well. Yeah, there are other things. Maybe I'll share them later. You can see my boss pumpkin walking in the background here. But before we go on, I also want to congratulate the great Joy Harjo. Joy is from the Muskogee Creek tribe. I'm very proud of that. And she's just been named to a rare third term as this nation's poet laureate. So Mado, Joy, congratulations. And we love having you out there representing all of us. And before we get to the body of this conversation, I want to remind you guys that you can submit questions to this show during the show. You can see it scrolling down there to emily.aka@thefoundryarts.com. And you can submit questions at any time. There will be a question and answer part. And hi, Guy, and hi. Thanks for saying hi to Pump. See, I get the messages pretty quickly. Well, hey, Karen, I love you too. And put your questions in or just say hello and we'll drink to you. Also, speaking of drinks, I want you guys to prepare cocktails for yourself because Marion and I have a drink in common here and we're going to be making gin gimlets very soon. So we want you guys to be having a cocktail with us. Or if you don't drink, have a nice kombucha. Not that I like kombucha, but I love his fresca. Get a nice fresca for yourself and join us. So here we go. I want to introduce you to my first guest here, my only guest today, Marion Newman. Marion Newman is a First Nations mezzo-soprano originally from Vancouver Island. And Marion has sung throughout Canada and throughout the world. She trained in Victoria and at the San Francisco Conservatory. She has become one of the preeminent mezzo-sopranos in Canada. But in addition to that, look at that. I love that shot. That's at the Empress Hotel. And Marion has become one of the preeminent First Nations performer artists in, I would say, in North America. So welcome, Marion.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
So glad to have you here. So before we get going any further, one thing that I came across in Canada that we're slowly starting to do here, some slower than others, is a land acknowledgement. And I just want to acknowledge that I am on Haudenosaunee land, and I would like to thank them that this is their original unceded land where Rochester now sits. Mado, thank you for allowing us to be here.
And I'm calling you from Tekaronto, otherwise known as Toronto, where the trees stand in the water. This land originally was the land of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee as well, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, and the Wendat. And I just like to point out that the Haudenosaunee we share that because borders are a colonialist structure.
It's huge, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Who owned Niagara Falls? You know.
I don't know. I mean, nobody owned anything. That's the thing. They lived in harmony with the land. We all lived in harmony with the land.
Well, I would like to live in harmony with Niagara Falls and own it, but maybe that will happen one day. So before we get, one thing that I discovered in Canada with you all were Hawkins, what are they called?
Hawkins cheesies, which I just happen to have a gigantic cedar basket.
Look at that. And you know what? These people started bringing me Hawkins cheesies because ever since I was a child, I've been a great fan of the healthy American snack Cheetos. So I have both the blue kind and the red kind because you know what? It depends on my mood. I love both of them. So in preparation for this show the other night, I went to Wegmans. I love Wegmans. And I bought both kinds of Cheetos. And I got home and I noticed, because I don't pay attention, but I accidentally bought the family size of both. And most of these were gone by the next morning. So in addition to our Cheetos, what I also learned from you were Empress Gin. And people here don't really know Empress Gin, although you can get it. So I feel like I'm on QVC. Look at this. Now, I don't know if you can see that color, but Empress Gin emanates from the Empress Hotel in what city, Marion?
In Victoria, BC.
In Victoria, BC, the most beautiful, beautiful island.
Yeah.
And you're the one, you know, of course, we had our cast of Missing and we would rehearse all day and we would usually go have dinner together and then we would end up drinking drinking. Where sometimes we tried on each other's pants, but one of the things is that we had Empress Gin Gimlets, and I want to tell y'all that the magical thing about this is when you add citrus or tonic, it changes colors. For example, I'm now going to make a cocktail, and Marion, please join me.
I pre-mixed mine in this beautiful thermos.
So this is 2. I'm going to do 3 of these because I have my lovely assistant next to me. 2, 3. Oh, fuck. Just spilling stuff.
That's why I pre-mixed mine.
You know what? They can cut that out of the podcast because I can't help but cuss. I feel like Paula Dean, you know?
It doesn't offend me.
Well, okay. It may offend others, but you know what? That's life. And wait, what am I doing? 2, 3. Yes.
It might be the sweetest cocktail ever.
Did I do that?
Yeah, you did 2 of that one.
2 of that?
Yeah, but you should do another one.
Okay, I'm just going to wing this. Is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Now, look at this color. Isn't that beautiful? It matches this. I'm going to pour really quickly, Marion. It matches the painting behind you.
It does. This beautiful painting by Patrick Hunter, who is my first nation artist. Look at your fancy glasses.
Yes, we're ready to party here, you know?
Amazing.
Okay, great. There you go, baby. And Marion, cheers to you, cheers to us, cheers to Missing. Cheers to the missing Indigenous women. Coink to my lovely assistant, Chris. Drink up. Okay, now I have like gin all over the place in front of me. Oh. So you guys, I hope you're pouring your drinks or your kombucha or your fresca or whatever you want. And we're going to eat Cheez-Its and drink our gin gimlets during this. So, well, Kate Wood, you should get some cheesies and then you'll be all set, okay? So Marion, I have a quote from another interview that because it kind of goes, we go from being indigenous to having fancy cocktails. This quote is, "There's nothing the mezzo-soprano Marion Newman likes better than embarking from the Toronto Yacht Club with her partner on their Contessa 26 sailboat and spending a day or more on Lake Ontario." That's
Yes.
fancy.
Actually, the Etobicoke Yacht Club is where we keep our boat, and we ride our bikes there. And we have a sweet, sweet Contessa that we've been all over the lake on, except for we haven't been to your side yet. We always bring our
Have you not?
passports just in case, but one of these days we're going to come visit you by boat.
I thought you didn't need a passport with the J Treaty.
You don't, but, well, Norm does. Norm's
Well,
not
Norm's white,
Indigenous.
right?
That's right.
He's a white man. I married a white man too, and it's sort of a good combo, I find.
Oh, yeah.
It keeps me going. So what I love, about your bio. Well, it's not your bio really, but that you were originally a pianist. When did you become a singer, or were you always a singer?
I started piano at the age of 5, and I just thought I was going to be a pianist. It meant everything to me. It was like a language that I could speak that was way deeper than English at the age of 5, where I could express my emotions in a big way and let people know that I had deeper thoughts than my 5-year-old language would allow me. And
Were you a shy child?
Of course, yes, I'm a shy
Yeah, me
adult,
too.
and I am introverted as well. There are some people
Me
who wouldn't
too.
believe that, but it just takes me a little while
Me,
to feel
me too. Yeah.
ready to express myself in a space. And I think that maybe it's just introverts are good at listening. You find your place in the room by checking everyone out and hearing what they have to say and who's already there, and you discover what does that room need, and you fill the space with that role. But anyway, I started to sing at age 16 when I was going to college, and I had to take voice as a second instrument because I was accompanying singers, and they wanted us to learn how to breathe and how words, change the way you express music. And I loved it. And so from then on,
College
I
early.
continued. I did. Yeah. I was homeschooled. And at about around age 15, I started to become a little bit unruly, according to my parents. I think
Good for
according to
me.
some people, I was very well behaved, but maybe I
Same
didn't
here.
practice. Pardon me?
It's the same here. On the outside, not everybody, but my parents and a lot of people thought I was such a good boy because I practiced piano, but I went rather wild. But I kept practicing piano the whole time,
I think I just talked back a lot and whatever at that point. But anyway, they thought maybe I should apply to college and just find some structure for my life. And that wasn't self-created or created by my family. And I applied to Camosun College in Victoria, and I got into music. I already had all of the music credits necessary. I just had to take some English like placement exams, and they decided I definitely had the equivalent of high school English. So away I went. And from there, I transferred into university and eventually ended up with my master's degree.
You didn't become cheerleader or anything like that?
Not even close. I played soccer.
No?
I
Oh
was
my
kind
gosh.
of a tomboy or a jock, I guess.
I can't see that, but I didn't play sport. I played tennis, and I injured myself
I,
playing tennis.
I started working out again, so maybe next time you see me, I'll show you my muscles.
Well, I hope I can do that. But as I was telling you before, I was on keto diet, which was working really well until I added bread to it and kept the high fat content. And then, so I don't think it's meant to be that way, but it sure tastes good. Keto with carbs. That's the best.
I think that's a Cheeto.
That is a Cheeto, damn it. That should be your new indigenous diet book. Keto plus bread. It's called the Cheeto. I'll buy it, that's for sure. So you've lived in America though, right? You lived here in San Francisco, yes?
Yeah, I went to the San Francisco Conservatory of Music for 2 years for my master's, and I got to live in San Francisco for that time, which was amazing. It was foggy sometimes. Like, I've never seen fog like that, but it was so accessible. Like, their transit system's amazing. So you could go to Berkeley to watch a concert, and they had like standing room tickets at the opera, which were perfect for students, and student tickets at the symphony. So I really got to experience such a high level of music in a way that I hadn't before when I lived back home. And it helped tune my ears to something, and to something like really seriously professional, and gave me a whole new level to aim for in my own studies.
That's wonderful. Did you have a nightlife with it? Did you have a boyfriend or anything?
Yes, I did have a boyfriend for the first year I was there. He came with me from Canada.
Full
We
name.
both went to school there, and we didn't make it through. But when I came home for the summer in between, I met someone else. And so for the second year, I had a Canadian boyfriend who became my fiance at Christmas time. We got married after I finished school. We got unmarried about 7 years later.
I don't
And
think
now
I
I'm
knew
very
that.
happy with Norm. Oh, well, surprise, surprise.
Are you still in touch?
With my mother outlaw.
Oh,
She's
well, that's
awesome.
good. I know some people who are friends with their exes, and I'm like, bye, for most of them.
I'm
No,
friends with some, but this particular one lives in Switzerland now, so we
well,
never
that
see each other.
helps. That really helps a
Yes.
lot. I run
And
into
I was
some of
pointing
mine
at it at
occasionally,
the end.
and that happens
Oh,
when
yeah?
you're young. Yeah, well, I
Mhm.
run into some of mine. I'm like, I don't know. I'm sort of like, I'm a different person, really. I mean, it's
Yeah.
my fault too. But have you dated Indigenous men?
Briefly, actually, yeah, my very first boyfriend, Josh,
Ron
is
Rice?
Indigenous. Not Ron Rice, no. He was already taken when I met him.
Ron's taken. You know, I came out rather late. When I was in Oklahoma, I was hardly out, but I occasionally would go to gay bars when I would go back home to visit, and I would see Native men in the bar. And I think just because I came out so late and the way I grew up, it felt so weird because they all look like cousins to me, And I'm not really into incest. No offense for those of you who are, but it just seems sort of strange to think of dating a native man, but then of course then I see Adam Beach and all that stuff. It's like, well, yeah, you could imagine that happening somehow. But one thing you've talked about with me occasionally, which we don't see in America, is so much because of course, people don't know the tribes are so different. And in America itself, we have at this point 574 federally recognized tribes. That doesn't mean that's all we have, but we have over 300 languages here. I think Canada has even more. But the thing I'm interested in is the potlatch system. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Potlatch system is really a West Coast Indigenous phenomenon or culture. It is a feast, and you gather from like anybody by word of mouth who hears about it. People used to come in their canoes from way up north to gather at the northern tip of Vancouver Island, say, for a potlatch in Alert Bay, or Tsaxis, which is where my people are from. And you gather in a big house, which uh, where I'm from,
Yeah,
Tsaxis. It's
Saxis.
Tsaxis, yeah.
Saxis.
It's Tsaxis, that's right. Fort Rupert, it's also called in English. But people would gather in a big house, and there's a fire in the middle, and the big house is huge, like can hold hundreds of people. And there are benches on either side, and there's a great big fire in the middle. And there's at one end, there's like a backboard, a soundboard with design on it. And there's a long log drum in front of that. And all of the singers and drummers sit at that log all the way around it. And they drum and they sing together. And you get this huge, amazing sound. And people who know the dances or who are asked by the family that's throwing the feast to dance perform these dances around the fire. And they all start with the sacred part of the ceremony, the secret society of the Chametza, or the cannibals, which is these incredible masks. I don't know if we can see in the background. There's a mask that my dad made me. That's a thunderbird, and thunderbird is part of that. So it's these mythical bird creatures that are all powerful. And
So you're not literally a cannibal then?
No, no. It's like it's meant to show that. Well, what is it meant to show?
What's the cannibal part though?
The chametza are those who, well, they're a secret society, and I'm not a chametza, so there are probably a lot of things I don't know because I haven't been inducted into the chametza. As
Do
far
they
as I
eat
know, it's
people?
almost all men. Not that I've seen, but they will appear to want to as part of that dance. And they used to be such a theatrical event. They had secret blood sacs like tucked in where if it looked like somebody bit someone, they would appear to be a cannibal because there would be a blood sac filled with animal blood or maybe fish blood that would burst open, and there were trapdoors in the floors and flies from the ceiling. There were ladders where they could get up and come in through the smoke hole and appear to be crawling on the ceiling. Really, really theatrical storytelling. But
Blood
yeah,
bursting?
a little bit operatic, you might say.
It reminds me of my favorite show, Dr. Pimple Popper. Have you watched that?
Yes, because of you. During
It's a good
missing, you
show, damn
showed
it.
us the most disgusting videos.
Yeah, I watch Dr. Pimple Popper, and I watch to make myself feel better. My 600-pound life. Love that show because I
I have not
understand
seen
their
that one.
viewpoint, but it also makes me feel better because I don't weigh as much as them. So moving on, Marion, you've
I
done
think
so
we should.
much work, and can you just very quickly tell us about the whole thing? Because with that wonderful conductor, I say that because I don't know him, but I know of him, Bramwell
Tim Long?
Tovey. Yeah,
Oh,
Tim Long.
yeah.
My piano competition name when I was in school was Lim Tong because the Asians would always win. So my friends called me Lim Tong. Anywho, Bramwell Tovey. How'd
Bramwell
that go?
Tovey. Oh, Bramwell Tovey's an amazing human. And I
I
met
hear.
Bramwell Tovey through another amazing conductor and friend of mine, Gordon Gerard,
Gordon's
because
great.
Gordon was associate director or associate conductor of the Vancouver Symphony, and he lived in Vancouver for a while. And actually, while I was out there for missing, I stayed with Gordon and his partner. And
In Regina,
yeah,
yeah.
no, that was in Vancouver the first time we did missing.
Oh,
Gordon
I
has moved
didn't know
around.
that.
Now he's conductor of the
Yeah,
Regina Symphony. Yeah.
right.
But yeah, I met Bramwell through Gordon, and I knew of Bramwell, of course, because he's totally famous.
Yeah.
But we all went for breakfast one morning, and Bramwell asked if I would be interested in collaborating with him and having him write a song cycle for me and the orchestra. And after my mind stopped blowing, I said, absolutely, yes, that would be amazing. And we spent some time finding some texts that would be suitable because he wanted to tell the story of assimilation and residential school system and to make it a piece about reconciliation. So he is from England and he didn't want to appropriate anything. And that is definitely a concern that is worth thinking about. And we did look at some texts by Indigenous writers, but eventually he came up with this really cool idea to tell the story from his own people's words. And he, first of all, fell on the title of Ancestral Voices, because we all have ancestors. And we, as Native people, talk about our ancestors quite a lot. But the other side of my family, my English, Irish, Scottish side, doesn't really use that language to talk about the people that they come from. And so Bramwell had been thinking about that and decided that he could use poetry by poets from the British Isles and the words of apology by our Prime Minister at the time, Harper, and the acceptance of the recommendations to do with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission by Trudeau, who is our current Prime Minister. And there was one more piece needed, and I was involved in doing some research for my brother, for an art piece that my brother was making. And as part of that, I was online looking at the archives of all of this material, that like letters, bills, photographs, all kinds of interesting artifacts to do with the residential school system and the reserve system. And there was a letter from a minister to someone in the government explaining that they had come up with a brilliant idea for how to deal with the Indian problem. And that is to remove the children from their families so that they could properly learn the colonialist ways and kill the Indian in the child, thus saving the child.
Yeah. And do you people know that was happening in the U.S. until the 1970s? The government had to enact a law called the Indian Child Welfare Act because Indian children were still being removed. And frankly, at the border, most of those kids in cages are indigenous people. They're not the Spaniard portion of the citizenry, but the indigenous. And it's just really painful to see all of that happening. And I know your father was in a residential school as well, right?
Yeah, my father, all my aunts and uncles, and I am the first kid who didn't have to go to residential school on that side of the family. And it's a large part of the reason why my parents decided to homeschool us, so that they could do their best to undo what that system had done to everyone's ways of thinking and the things that the non-Indigenous teachers imagined about Indigenous kids, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So I think it worked. It was a wonderful thing that my parents did.
Well, look, we're still here. It's 2020. They didn't kill us off. So we represent, and hopefully we keep representing with this whole thing. You know, my mom was in the American version. She was in a boarding school here. And for her, it was just about survival. So she met my father, which was wonderful because he was always very positive and outgoing. And I don't think my mom ever really regained everything that she lost from that, because Choctaw was her first language and they were forbidden to speak it. But yeah, there was a lot of damage done. I think about these words a lot. I think of reconciliation, and I think, was there ever conciliation to begin with? So to reconciliate, is that even, I don't know. Decolonization, I get a little bit more. But can you tell us, you have this great piece, Shanawdithit. Can you quickly tell me what that is? Did I mispronounce it? Is it good?
No, you said it. Shanawdithit by Yvette Nolan, the librettist, wonderful playwright and director and friend and mentor. And Dean Burry, Canadian composer, wrote the music. And actually this piece of artwork right here was part of what Tapestry Opera commissioned to help to represent the show and on their posters and whatnot. And this is taken from a picture of my hand. We did a photo shoot beforehand, and I had my hand up like this in one of the shots. And so this is like a representation of my hand with a bunch of the designs of the Beothuk people that are shown in these 10 drawings that Shauna did. I think it's 10, maybe it's 12. I should know this. I spent a lot of time looking at it.
You're almost flipping us off with that, but I don't think you're fully.
But anyway, I got to play the role of the very last of the Beothuk people. At least that's what the government claims, is that these people were disappeared, and they said that the Beothuk tribe was no longer, so they were able to claim the lands that they were on. Very convenient for them. But through DNA testing, they're realizing that there are people who have Beothuk blood, and that they just went underground or married with married Mi'kmaq people, and so there are definitely still people who are Beothuk out there.
Well,
but they're from Newfoundland, end of Canada.
With that weird accent, I love that accent. But we have a clip for that. Rome, can you show us a clip of Shanawdithit, and we can see Marion in action? That looks amazing.
It is a glorious piece.
You look beautiful, and you're crying, which is so rare, Marion. But of course, we met on the wonderful piece "Missing," and you know what I loved about that is that you became our de facto leader, which is so appropriate because our indigenous nations were matrilineal to begin with, and it seemed like we fell right into that. And you represented everybody in the piece. And for me, it's a little bit different because, you know, when I conduct, I'm counting and making sure cues happen. Remember that time you got mixed up in that Fermata area with yeah, so I'm trying to keep the orchestra on track. So me either, but that's a good thing. We'll never forget that. Remember that, Kate?
That was before it was set to music. So my part was spoken, and it is very unusual for me to speak. to speak words, but also keep track of where the score is at.
Well, I'm a horrific actor.
It got set to music for the second time. Much more easy to figure out where I was.
I loved it. But you know, the thing about being a conductor is that I don't think, you know, we don't have words and we're not facing the audience. We have so many multiple things to do that we don't as easily just go into an emotional place, but it was impossible to avoid for you guys on stage, I know, wasn't it? Maybe even rehearsals.
Oh, gosh, yeah. We had to really figure out how, like, where is that edge? And the edges were very close. The emotional edges were so close in every scene of that whole work. And for those of us who are Indigenous, we relate completely to that story. As a grown woman, if I'm in the same city as my parents, they pick me up and drive me everywhere because there's this constant concern that I could go missing, that my sister could go missing. It's that close. So I think we understood that story from the inside, and because we live it. So it was hard not to be emotional. And as in my role of Dr. Wilson, I was confronting the audience in a lecture format, asking them, like, what do you see when you see me? Anyone? Does anyone have, do you see me? As an Indigenous woman, do you see me? No. Do you care about me?
The answer is no.
It was just so, it was, oh my gosh. I gained so much strength and ability to speak up from playing that role that Marie wrote. Yeah. And I think it's very much a part of the reason why I spoke up, because when you realize how much people are not paying attention to us, what do you have to lose, honestly? And as a singer playing that role, I'm a singer of a certain age. I'm a mezzo. There are no other Canadian mezzos who weren't already in the piece that could easily step into that role. And so I gained confidence from knowing that they had to take what I gave.
Yeah, kind of the same with me. It's like I'm the only Indigenous conductor around there. And we had the fabulous Heather Malloy. Thank you for playing the most hated character in the opera, Heather. She was awful, but we couldn't have done it without her.
Yes. No kidding. And it was perfect that she was such she is such a warm and beautiful person. Reginians?
You know, there's a restaurant in Rochester called Giants.
Oh.
We think they should have an apostrophe at the beginning. So, you know, you were saying about that barrier of emotion, I think it was much closer than any of us ever thought, don't you? And
always.
I remember that one rehearsal, and again, I was trying to negotiate everything. So I wasn't as in the center of that emotion as you all were. And it was going really, really well. And we had a wonderful director who was not Indigenous, though. And he was pushing you all to go further and further and feel more and more. And the whole thing just fell apart. And I consider him to be an ally as well. So this is a lesson. This is, again, what I was talking about in the intro, the person who asked me to spread plastic arrowheads considers himself an ally. This director considers himself an ally. And I think he's so talented, and I love working with him. But there is a real danger there, isn't there? I mean, of not knowing someone's experience. Maybe we didn't even know our own experience until we were attached to this. I don't know. I mean, what are your feelings on that?
I think I would say that he is an ally for sure, but there's a danger in being an ally and being asked, actually being invited to do something like, to direct something like that by the community, by someone within that piece. And so going in with confidence and not realizing that you have to keep your ears and eyes open the whole time and continue to learn, and that where we're at as Indigenous people keeps changing. And part of that is, like, for me anyway, has been gaining some power and some willingness to speak up, the ability to find the words when I'm angry and upset.
Exactly.
And
that's not easy.
It is not easy at all. Usually emotions scramble my brain.
Exactly.
But something to do with that role just made me so aware and able to say, we can't go on like this. And to spend some time with that director and the company, actually, that was putting the piece on, to say,
very difficult.
And I cried my way through all of that because I was feeling it so hard. And I also, I have an English, Irish, Scottish side of my family, as well as my Kwagiulth Stó side. So I've had to negotiate that balance between worlds my whole life. And I know what it is to be in between, and I know what it is to love and respect both sides of my family thoroughly. So I don't want to turn anybody off. I don't want to turn anyone away. But I realized that I have become so good at being polite and allowing people to sort of step on me and think I'm the one who knows, so I'm the one who will get over it. That I think it was because there were other people in the room who were younger and who wouldn't speak up yet. And I just wanted everything to be better for them as well. That gave me the strength.
Completely.
It felt a bit like we were being bullied by accident. And
I think by accident, because, God bless him. I think he was put in an awkward position by being hired for that. And Marie asked him to be in it, and he's wonderful. And he didn't mean any of it. And he felt horrible too. It's just that we'd never had those conversations before. But, one thing that you said is, you've been used to being polite and quiet. And when I look back to myself, when I was polite and quiet, when I was affronted, the thing that you're required to do when that happens is to deny your Indigenous blood. You kind of have to step out of that in order to be not offended. And I think you feel the same way that I do. We can no longer do that. We can't afford to do that. We can't afford to deny our ancestors, or, what? I'm fine. I don't get offended that easily, but I'm looking out for people who are younger than me, who are coming up, who don't have role models, who may be affronted. And I'm so glad you spoke up. And I learned so much from you in Canada, and just learning to represent our people, to be proud, and to even endure the feelings of our ancestors, which I hadn't done that much, honestly. And I hadn't been able to connect, but we get our personalities from our ancestors. We inherit the way we process feeling from them, all that stuff. So thank you for opening my eyes as well. We're at this point.
I was just going to say, you were talking about being fortunate, and you have been fortunate. And I use the word privilege. I have grown up in a very, very privileged and safe way. And I continue to have immense support around me in everything I do. And I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've been held to account, and I've managed to get through those mistakes that I've made. And that helped me to realize that by confronting the issues that were in the room that day, missing wasn't the only time when that has come up, when that kind of tension has happened. And by confronting those, I'm giving people the chance to do the kind of growing that I've done. And I think that's only fair. And I learned so much from that director. I learned so much from that role. I wouldn't be the artist that I am today had we not worked together in the capacity that we have. So I'm extremely grateful. And I know that I was able to do that because of my privilege.
Well, I'd say you said you made a lot of mistakes, but the reason you've had so much success is because you were willing to make a lot of mistakes. The only people who don't make mistakes are the ones who are not putting themselves out there. So as you say, as Dr. Wilson, I mean, what do you have to lose? I don't think we have much to lose, really. So at this point, I would like to invite our wonderful producer, Emily Aka, onto the screen and see if we have any audience questions for Marion or me. Emily, are you there? Well, hello, there you are. Do we have any questions today?
I can't hear Emily.
Oh, she's on the phone part. I'm hearing her in the phone.
That's why. Technical
Oh, there you are.
adjustment. I bet you can hear me now.
Yes.
Excellent. So I do have a question for you. Marion, do you have any tips for finding inner calm or balance during these chaotic times?
Going for walks.
Gimlet.
Counting your privileges. Like getting enough sleep if you are able. I have a cat named Zoe who responds to chaos or trauma that's going on by sitting on your lap and sometimes even climbing up around my neck and like cuddling me hard. She comes with this cat scarf and just purring until I feel calm.
Having a pussy around your neck just sounds so frightening to me, but that's just...
Wow, I walked right into that one.
It's been years.
Moving right along. Ali wants to know, Marion Ali wants to know more about your dad's experience of residential schools.
Oh, I didn't really hear much about my dad's experience until the Truth and Reconciliation Commission happened here in Canada, and he made a statement about his experience, which meant that he had to remember. It was definitely traumatic. I think he was 7 when he was taken away, and he knew that he would be taken away because my grandparents had been, and they knew that their own children would be as well. I know that when he got to school, he went with his siblings and he was separated, the boys and the girls' side, and they could see each other through a chain link fence, but they were forbidden from speaking to each other. So his little sisters, he wasn't allowed to communicate with. They didn't understand why he wouldn't talk to them. And he had to live with that for the time he was there, from age 7 until 16. And he was really smart. And would finish his schoolwork in the first few minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes of class. And for the rest of the hour would be full of mischief. He might have done well on the Exposure to Mischief show that I think we should write. He would be sent out to work in the barns or in the fields during that time. So really, it was like learn just enough to get by of math and English, and then learn trades or to be in service to settler households. And he managed to get himself kicked out at the age of 16 he had a friend who was very, very tiny, who could fit through the bars they were underneath a set of stairs, and he could fit through the bars into a window where the holy wine was kept. And my dad knew the holy wine was there because it was one of his responsibilities as head altar boy. And he helped this kid get in there, and the kid would fill up the bottles that were being passed through and hand them out. And so they filled these bottles with holy wine and went and got drunk in the apple orchard underneath an apple tree, a bunch of them. And when it was realized what had happened, all of the whole school, all of the boys were stood up and said, "Who's responsible for this?" And my dad took the blame so that everyone else would not be punished, and he was sent home, which was great. He actually got to start, got to go back to his family and to start working. Became a fisherman and a logger and an artist, and met my mom, and the rest is history.
Wow. Tim, would you tell us a little bit more about your mom's experience? That's an extension of Ali's question.
My mom's experience, she went to a boarding school when she was probably around 11 years old. She and her 4 brothers were sent to boarding schools. She and her younger brother were sent to Goodland in southeastern Oklahoma. Her 2 older brothers were sent to, I think, Shalakbo in northern Oklahoma. And of course, there were people from many tribes there. She lost her language there. She regained it later. But the thing about her is that she got TB when she was in high school, and she lived 5 years quarantined. I mean, think about our quarantine. She lived 5 years quarantined in an Indian sanatorium with TB before they had treatment. And as we all know, they did experimental treatments on a lot of the Indian people at that time. So she survived all of that. And again, because of her, I have the life that I have, because it's when she discovered classical music. So again, I'm privileged. I'm very fortunate to be here, to have the life that I have, largely because of the perseverance of my parents and my ancestors, really.
Wow. I have one final question for you, Marion. Do you have any advice for singers who are learning or working on roles that are personally difficult or painful?
Yeah. In your rehearsal time, when you're on your own, let yourself go all the way into that and imagine imagine the deepest, imagine the worst of it, the hardest part, and just let yourself live in that when you're still in your, we're practicing at home or in your practice room, so that you aren't as surprised as often when you get into rehearsal with other people. And don't hold on, because if you're tight in your body, you won't sing as well, and you'll be holding back. That will end up hitting your throat. And make sure you're really hooked up to your singing muscles, and let your emotions come through you. It's hard, and let yourself cry in rehearsal if you must. But don't hold that in your body, because it will hold you back. And if you can let it out in rehearsal, then you know where the edges are, and you know what the warning signs are. So if you're on stage, add nerves, all of that. Often nerves actually center me, and I think they do most performers. And so if you let yourself experience the worst in rehearsal and in your own practice time, then you'll be ready to control it enough to get through. And instead of being afraid of the kind of emotion that brings into your body, like, let that out through your voice, and make sure you can wiggle your toes and leave some air under your armpits so that your chest can breathe and your heart can beat, and you can let that emotion flow out of you in a musical way.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Emily, for being here with us. Thank you. And thank you guys for submitting questions as well. Thank you guys for saying hello through the chat too.
Yeah.
I have some very quick questions for you. I call them like 20 quick questions. But my first question is, yes or no, Trudeau?
Not happy with Trudeau.
You must admit that he has a nice suxo, though.
Initially, I said I was a yes, but he just reneged on getting fresh drinking water to reserves on time. And so now I guess he's a no.
We don't like you, Trudeau. But
get
we'll look at your
it together, dude.
Yeah, get it together, damn it. Okay, here are my quick questions. What's your star sign?
Taurus.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Oh, fiction.
Nonfiction. Favorite food?
Cheesies from Hawkins, of course.
Well, of course. I know. I'm going to pig out on this after I get off of this call. What's your favorite planet?
Oh, the moon. Is that a planet?
No, it's not a
Or is it
planet.
just called the moon?
What's
Earth.
it's called the moon? Oh,
Earth
you know
is my favorite planet.
the correct answer is Uranus. Flight
Oh!
or invisibility?
Sorry,
Ding,
say that
ding,
again.
ding, ding. Flight or invisibility?
Flight.
This
As an
is
Indigenous
really,
woman, I know what it is to be invisible already, so I'd rather fly.
oh my God, that's a good question. I'm serious. Isn't that a great question, y'all? I mean, answer, y'all. In 40 years, I'm altering this question. In 40 years, what do you think you'll be nostalgic for if you're alive?
Well, I hope I'm still alive. Being able to drink as many gimlets as I can. My strong arms, being able to shake
There
a
you
gimlet.
go. That's a good desire. I've set my death year as 2050, by the way, so I don't want to go
Oh,
that much longer. Yeah, 82 I'll be. That's my year. Dogs or cats? Well, clearly, pussy. Star
I
Trek or
love them
Star
both.
Wars?
Trek.
Uh,
That's the right answer.
what was your first non-musical job?
Oh. Almost all my jobs have been musical. I guess it would be helping out at the local museum in Souk, BC.
Well, that sounds so proper.
It was,
That
I
was in
played a
college?
settler, like knitting, and no, I was a teenager. Oh, I had a
Really?
paper route. That was before then.
Oh my God. My first and only non-musical job in high school, my senior year, I worked in the movie theater, a privately owned movie theater. It was all high school students that ran it. You know, we did the marquee, we did the concessions, the tickets, we put together the films. On weekends at midnight on one side, they played Rocky Horror Picture Show. On the other side, they played porn. And we put all the porn films together. And we were like running projectors and everything. And this is the result. So
That's,
it all worked
that
out
explains
well,
a
didn't it?
lot.
Yeah,
Definitely.
in a movie, who would play you?
Oh, I've heard Marissa Tomei, but she's non-Indigenous as far as I know. So I don't know.
You have to go to red face, right? Who would play me? Who would
Oh,
play this?
Adam Beach.
Oh, thank you. You know, because for so long, for like decades, Lou Diamond Phillips played anybody who was brown. But I haven't seen him lately. I'm going to Google
I
him
have
tonight. I don't know where he
thought about
is.
it playing me in a movie.
I would be honored to have Adam Beach play me or Brad Pitt. Either way, we'll see. You know, anywho, I think we're getting towards the end of this. Do you have any projects coming up that you'd like us to know about?
Yeah, I have been offered an amazing position of dramaturge by Calgary Opera. The offer came through Bramwell Tovey. I get to help the creation of a new work, an operatic work, and I get to choose the
Amazing.
team. And with my team, we get to choose the subject. It's completely Indigenous run and organized, and Calgary Opera has just offered us the space to make this happen. And it was such an honor to call and write my friends to say, hey, do you want to do this with me? And so thank you, Bramwell Tovey and Heather Kitchen, for the amazing idea and the awesome opportunity. I have some cool online recital stuff happening at the COC Opera. We're doing a recital. We're recording it in February, so it'll be released after that, but we'll be, I wanted to tell you that one because we will be airing a piece for the very first time by Ian Cuson, and Ian has set a poem called Fire by Joy Harjo.
Oh,
It's a
really?
duet for Rebecca Cuddy, an awesome Métis mezzo, and I will be
Wow.
singing this amazing thing with our friend Gordon Gerard on the keyboard, on the piano.
Wonderful. And
Yeah.
Ian is Métis, is he?
He's a wonderful writer of music, and Ian is one of the composers that I've invited to create this piece as dramaturge. So
Well, I hope our
I'm
borders open up soon so I can come see these things in Toronto,
yeah.
And
Well, the
also,
CSA
don't
thing will be
forget,
online.
oh, online. Okay, just let us know about that. And your website is what?
MarionNewman.com.
MarionNewman.com. And your agent is who? I know you have
MarionNewman.
your stuff up with your agent's website as
Yeah,
well.
Kathy Dominy,
She's so nice.
DominiArtists.com is where my up-to-date information is found online.
That's great. Well, Marion, thank you for being here today with me. It's so thrilling to see you. I have to say, I've only known you 3 years, but all you missing guys have become part of my family, and I know you will be until 2050, my dying year. So thank you for coming into my life and honestly teaching me so much. And you're hilarious to boot and make great gimlets. So thank you for being here, and I hope I can see you sometime soon. Okay.
Thank you for having me. I'll come back anytime.
Absolutely. We'll have a great night, okay? Mado. Well, Caitlin Wood, Michael Gray Eyes, I'd love to have him play me in a movie. He may have to gain weight, though. We'll see. Anywho, you guys, thank you for being here with us today. I just love Marion. I really do. And our next guest for our holiday show is my great friend, Mia M. And I met Mia in the late 90s. She's a pianist, coach, and conductor. She's the music director of opera at Rice University. She's the music director of the Houston Grand Opera Studio. And she's just been named as the head coach for Renee Fleming's new opera program at the Aspen Music Festival. Mia is always a great time. She's my tennis partner, my party partner, and we'll have a rollicking good time because she gives it as good as she gets it, really. I would just want to say again, thank you to Marion. Thank you to you guys for tuning in with us, and for you guys on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you to all of our producers, Emily, Rome, Rob, Pat, Marcy, all of you guys for helping to make this happen. Corey, I forgot you, Corey. I want to thank my beautiful assistants, my husband, Chris Herbert, who handed me a drink, and my wonderful father-in-law, Randy Plimpton, for giving us his beautiful house and making me a steak dinner tonight. He's just fantastic. So I want to mention, you heard in the opening credits, the great Martha Redbone, Medicine Man, and we're going to listen to the song Indian Man with words by Marie Clements and music by Wayne LaValle on the playout. Stay safe and Mado, happy holidays, and I'll see you guys soon.
You got your ancestors inside you.